There were two particularly annoying regions that we humans wanted to blow a hole through. The old world's Suez Isthmus and the new world's Panama Isthmus. They both had the audacity of inconveniently cock-blocking two oceans. Spain and Portugal signaled the beginning of the age of discovery with a bang. This zero-sum game of hungry hippos spawned pointless conflicts between the two nations all over the world, and they eventually got the Pope to mediate for some reason. As you might expect from someone whose primary job was convincing gullible peasants that the man in the clouds was angry for one reason or another, the Pope just lazily drew a line and said, "Alright, Spain owns everything west of this line, and Portugal owns everything east of this line, as long as y'all remember that the world belongs to God, capiche?" Both countries more or less dutifully followed the word of God and avoided murdering each other over territory. Portugal colonized Africa and Asia in peace, while Spain colonized the Americas. Here's the problem. There were all sorts of precious loot, like spices, practically growing on trees in Africa and beyond, while the New World really didn't have much. I mean, they discovered things like cigarettes and syphilis, each perfectly delightful in their own right. To make matters worse, the Native Americans were just dropping dead like flies because they had no immune system against diseases from the Old World. You can't exactly peer pressure a dead body into slavery, you know? As far as Spain was concerned, this whole holy mediation really screwed them over. Well, maybe. If they go further and further and further west, they might be able to reach Asia too and receive the divine reward that they so desperately deserved. Just one tiny problem. They had to go all the way around the world. Let's set sail for the Panama Canal! The canal that created a whole fucking country. Ferdinand Magellan's fleet of ships sliced through the sea to fulfill the order of Charles V. Go around the whole world. Mind you, this was before GPS and an actual world map. They reckoned that they would see the end of Americas around the same latitude as Africa. As they found out the hard way, they reckoned wrong. Very wrong. I know it may not look like too much of a difference, but there were literally icebergs floating around this Antarctic circle, just waiting for the opportunity to Titanic a motherfucker. Worse yet, unpredictable lethal storms raged about murderously, making Afghanistan and Somalia look like an Animal Crossing village in comparison. Magellan lost 2 old ships to Davy Jones and barely scraped through this hellish strait by the skin of his ass. Finally, the Pacific Ocean. All their troubles were over now, right? The Pacific Ocean, as it turned out, was literally the biggest ocean in the entire world. Way bigger than they could ever have possibly conceived. They were already balls deep and couldn't turn back. They really had no choice but to press on through this uncharted, desolate desert with supplies dwindling at terrifying rates. The dehydrated, starving, traumatized crew somehow finally managed to land ahoy the Philippines, fulfilling their mission of discovering Asia just by going west. Before the crew had any time to heal up, they accidentally aggroed the hostile natives and were forced into a bloody battle to the death. They suffered devastating casualties, with several of their crew getting their heads impaled on a stick, as well as the death of their commander Magellan. With just one boat remaining, the tattered survivors passed through the Portugal-controlled West region and finally arrived back in Spain after 3 traumatizing years. Humanity's first loop around the world physically proved that the Earth was round, which was a historical discovery on its own. To Spain, though, this meant big bucks. Spain colonized Manila, Philippines, and built a Pacific harbor city in Acapulco, facilitating a smooth trade route between the Old World and the New. Spain was then able to connect Acapulco and the Atlantic coastal harbor city Veracruz by land, which unlocked trade with, you guessed it, China. This is when the first resentful whispers started to conspire about blowing a hole through the Panama Isthmus. After all, if they just managed to clear 82 kilometers or 50 miles, they wouldn't have to sail all the way around the murderous Atlantic Ocean or march through the hellish jungle between Acapulco and Veracruz. Unfortunately, this was just straight up impossible due to technological limitations of the time. The Panama Isthmus was a part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, which meant that it was literally a submerged mountain. Again, if they wanted to build a canal here, they had to go through a fucking mountain. This ludicrous Panama Canal nonsense gained more and more traction in the 19th century as Spain's iron grasp of its colonies loosened. Maybe, just maybe, it might actually work. In 1869, France finished the Suez Canal after sacrificing unbelievable amounts of human lives and money. Lesseps, the proclaimed genius engineer that was the mastermind behind the Suez Canal, decided to leverage his vast experience and gift humanity with another legacy, the Panama Canal. Hell, he already finished one canal. How difficult could this be? Very fucking difficult! Unlike the Suez Canal, this isn't a flat desert that some prehistoric Egyptians could dig through with primitive tech. They literally had to drill through a fucking mountain. The native jungle mosquitoes eagerly milked the juicy laborers, cursing them to painfully die from malaria and yellow fever. Lesseps and France ended up yeeting 21,000 people into the jaws of death over 9 years before finally tapping out. The glorious Lesseps, once universally praised as a god among men, died a miserable, lonely death buried in more debt than dirt. If France, the country that built the even longer Suez Canal, was humiliatingly brought to its knees by this insurmountable challenge, other countries were sure as shit not going to put themselves through this wood chipper. Except for, of course, America! America had its humble beginnings as a group of colonies on the east side of the North American continent. Its influence was contained to just the eastern coast and maybe some of the Atlantic. Well, America hit puberty and started its inevitable overgrowth. America bought a shit ton of land from France through the Louisiana Purchase. America confiscated Texas and California after beating the living fuck out of Mexico. America even bought Alaska from the Russian Empire, finally manifesting its bloody destiny. Let's conveniently forget about the war crimes committed against the Native Americans during this righteous period of expansion, yeah? Who's going to stop America on the North American continent? Mexico is barely on life support after America deleted the country out of spite, and the colonies in Canada are too busy playing picnic with moose and maple leaves while trying really hard to not get noticed. With the settlers literally striking gold and starting the gold rush, the Wild West was rapidly populating with iconic cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, popping up from ground zero. Hell, it's about damn time to show these uncivilized bastards who the boss is. America kindly persuaded Hawaii to be docile, then kicked the withering Spain into an early grave, inheriting both Guam and the Philippines in the process. There's a new sheriff in town, boys! America was now the tyrant of the Pacific. The only opponent left standing was Mother Nature, and America was gonna make the Panama Canal happen, god damn it! America was now a naval superpower with access to both the Pacific and the Atlantic. If it wanted to throw around its weight and bully some oil out of a bitch, America needed to be able to send out its navy wherever necessary to provide some extra persuasion. Unfortunately, the only option currently available was to go through the murderous Arctic Ocean. After all, unlike simple merchandise, you can't exactly move a ship through land. In 1902, President Roosevelt purchased the Panama Canal construction rights from France for $40 million. Sure, but France didn't actually own Panama. Colombia owned Panama, and Colombia had nothing to do with this deal. So, America generously offers to rent land up to 10 miles from the canal for 99 years in return for $10 million upfront and $250,000 per year after the completion of the canal. Well, would you rent your living room out to a registered sex offender? The Colombian government seriously tells America to fuck off. After all, America was essentially asking nicely for a colony in the middle of Colombian territory. Unfortunately, this really wasn't an offer that Colombia could refuse. America was already as strong as the other Western imperialist powers, but it also learned from their mistakes to be a cunning son of a bitch. An empire toppled by its enemies can rise again, but one which crumbles from within, that's dead. Forever. Hey, don't you hate Colombia? They're taking you for granted. Here, have some guns and teach them a lesson. America backed the frenzied Panama separatists in Colombia into starting a full-scale rebellion on November 2nd, 1903. The very next day, the Republic of Panama declared its proud independence. Colombia rushed over immediately to stomp out this nonsense, only to discover that the full force of the American Navy was smugly parked right on their waters with their cannons aimed straight at the mainland. Colombia really had no choice but to retreat without even setting foot on their own territory. 3 days later, on November 6th, America kindly recognized the Republic of Panama as an independent nation. To summarize, America created a whole new country from scratch in 5 days just because they wanted a canal. America easily persuaded its child to indefinitely rent land up to 10 miles surrounding the canal and started construction the very next year in 1904. For the first year, America picked up right where France left off and learned the hard way why the French were forced to tap out with 21,600 deaths over 9 years. I really can't emphasize this enough. This was a fucking mountain. Digging through a mountain of Pacific coastal granite was just stupidly hard. Malaria kept killing off the laborers, and whatever painstaking progress they were able to make would be reset whenever the nearby Chagres River overflowed and submerged everything. This was an infinite loop destined to fail, and America decides to make 2 key changes in an attempt to break the cycle. First, exterminate the fucking parasites. Second, bring the boats up to the mountain instead of trying to level the ring of fire. America prioritized sanitation and completely changed its approach to construction, building a dam on the Chagres River and essentially making it a reservoir to prevent overflowing. Then, 3 canal locks were installed on both sides of the mountain in peace. After 6 years of pure construction, America finally finished with only 6,000 casualties. This was revolutionary. A voyage from New York to San Francisco now only takes 5,900 miles, less than half the 14,000 miles it would have normally taken through hazardous waters. The canal was also a massive part of global trade, having over 100 years of uninterrupted service with only 2 exceptions. This canal also gave a huge power boost to the US Navy, now able to freely roam between the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. This, in turn, massively changed the landscape of World War I and World War II. Here, imagine how differently things might have turned out if this strategic gem didn't exist right after Pearl Harbor. While America might still have won regardless, it would have been a pain in the ass to route their new boats all the way around the murderous Arctic Ocean just to get to the Pacific front. America engineered this miracle structure. The surrounding territory belonged to America, and thus the big fat profits from this canal went right into America's pocket. Panama started to resent the Americans getting fat off their land, while the impoverished natives suffered. There was a massive rebellion in 1959 and a much bigger one in 1964. While attempting to gently persuade the rebels to go home, 28 protesters were killed. Mighty as America may be, it wasn't mighty enough to stand up to unified international condemnation. Mind you, this was during the Cold War, when the grayest of ethical lines were being blurred for the sake of winning. Despite this, even America's allies thought that this crossed the line into the very tyrannical bullshit that they were supposed to fight and called it out in droves. America did return the vast majority of territory except the canal to Panama in 1973, but they still more or less controlled the country. America didn't give a fuck. In 1988, anti-American dictator Manuel Noriega was being a bit too annoying. Naturally, the best solution was to just invade this tiny nation, remove the dictator in the name of democracy, and replace him with a more understanding one. This backfired completely. South America's anti-American sentiment used this incident as a catalyst and exploded, giving birth to a brand new wave of nationalist forces. Even the UN, which normally was America's bitch, officially adopted a resolution condemning America's tyranny. With increasing pressure from all sides, America finally caved and officially returned the Panama Canal to Panama in 1999, finally ending America's ridiculous rule. Panama is one of the world's most important trade hubs because of the Panama Canal. With so much money flowing through its floodgates, Panama is richer than most of its South American neighbors. Its chill tax laws make it advantageous for ships to be registered there, and over 8,000 ships are registered as Panamanian as a result. As the only method to sail across the Americas, Panama earns over $2 billion every single year, and even expanded for the first time in 100 years in 2016. Panama officially got rid of its military back in 1994. While there might be several reasons behind this decision, a big one might be the fact that anybody that interferes with Panama will have to deal with a murderous Big Daddy America mauling the fuck out of them. Panama is truly a country whose birth and entire existence are defined solely by this canal. You think this was bad? This? You should check out our other video on the Suez Canal, which I guarantee you is even more of a shit show. It escalated to literal threats of a full-out nuclear war. I think you'll really like it a lot. This has been David Bradford from Knowledge Raiders, and thank you for watching.